This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 12th of October 2020, and I am Tuje.
I'm Tom.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed the headlines, here they are. Daily Nation, what awaits the school children? The Standard, defiant but sorry. Ruto's new normal. And the Star, Ruto's headache over Raila, Mount Kenya support. I think we start with the Star, Ruto's headache.
Recent news, yeah.
This weekend, Kikuyu elders went all the way down past the Rift Valley, don't know if they've been down that way before, to Raila's Bondo home. And they then said that they will not be fielding a candidate, the Kikuyu Nation will not be fielding a candidate in the 2022 elections, and they were coming together to work on a different formula in which they endorsed Raila Odinga as the preferred Kikuyu candidate, and even said that there's an MOU to bind this relationship should Kikuyus want to change their minds in future. I don't know. What do you guys think?
And I think Kikuyus should be a little bit open to this. I know for a long time Central Kenya has never accepted Raila Odinga's candidacy in elections, but it is time that they're open. But even if they're not, they will not matter so much this time.
I think the one important thing that we should highlight is what an MOU even is. It's not necessarily a binding document. I think it's just
a gentleman's agreement.
What the name says, it's a memorandum of understanding. We are agreeing to understand each other. And so if I'm not wrong in saying, I believe that Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta also had an MOU, back almost 8-10 years ago. And so there's nothing wrong with people changing their minds. That MOU has ceased to be relevant, ceased to be beneficial to both parties.
Absolutely.
And so the Kikuyus have said, you know what, let's have another MOU. And so I have no issue with that.
When the facts change, you change your mind.
Absolutely. And I don't think it should cause any discontent. William Ruto has begun charting his own path. Raila Odinga should be allowed to chart his own path.
Exactly.
But I also want to say one thing, and reiterate what Prof has been saying. By the way, for Raila Odinga to be president, he only needs 20% of Kema. The mark between him and 50% plus 1 is 6%, meaning he just needs about 900,000 Kikuyus or Akorinos to become president. So please do not overrate yourselves, Kikuyus. You can one time find yourself in opposition, still find yourself in government.
They should remember that Raila still had 46% of the total vote.
Absolutely.
So it's not like he came without anything.
Absolutely. He has his own votes. He just needs a little bit of yours to become president.
But who would have thought that Kikuyu elders, as Ms. K was saying, would trek all the way down to Bondo to go meet Raila Odinga? I think if we had said this even 1 year ago, even 6 months ago, we would have been making a laughable joke. So
absolutely.
You know what, Raila?
But they also said that this is part of the process. This is a bridge they're making, and they've done part 1. So part B would be Raila coming to Central, where they will be officially introduced to the people, and they would cement this unity. So let's wait for the next meeting where the elders of Luo Nyanza come down across pass into Central Kenya.
But I wonder one thing. Do you think they were eating meat in Kisumu or eating fish?
Fish. All right, should we park that for the moment?
Park that for the moment. Let's go into the standard. Defiant but sorry, Ruto's new normal.
Yes, defiant but sorry, Ruto's new normal. Look, he cannot be sorry and at the same time defiant. But the reason they're saying this is because he cut an image of a subdued man yesterday. But still, the man
he's been subdued all week.
No, of course he has. But he's been plotting because yesterday he went to a church function and addressed a big public rally thereafter, not a rally, a gathering, and then went back to Karen. And you know what he did? He took all the candidates from Msambweni for the by-election, the ones that are against the ODM candidate, and had a meeting with them. Basically, he's going against the party position. So he's still being a rebel.
He is being defiant.
He's being a rebel. And I want to also reiterate what we said on Friday, that if William Ruto was reading 48 laws, the 48 laws of power, he's gone against law number 24. And law number 24 is play the perfect courtier. Now, I want to say 3 things on this law. And the first thing he broke is be noticed in a good way. You want to be noticed without seeming to promote yourself, and that goes back to law number 1. Do not outshine your master. The second thing I want to say is do not be a critic. For goodness sake, you're in government. You cannot criticize the government that you serve, the government of the day. But third thing is be a joy to be around. When you see guys who have the charm and and are happy around you, you always want to be around those kind of people. But every time you're having gatherings of people saying "Hustler Nation, we must take this thing in 2020," you are aggressing your own boss. There's absolutely no way you'll expect to be treated well, even when you go to State House, because you're aggressing the boss.
Very true. Ms. K, can you remind us of our criteria so that I can explain why we should toss the standard?
Okay, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines, and we ask ourselves 2 questions. Is this headline topical or is it speculative? Is it repetitive or is it groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy?
It is all of the negative elements.
Speculative, repetitive, and just plain
maybe not
lazy.
all of them, but my point is, as 2M very rightly said, you cannot be defiant and sorry. Those things do not make sense. And I also think that it's not his new normal. It is a way that he has been existing for the past couple of months.
Precisely.
Defiance is the name of his game, you know?
Yes.
So I think that the standard is living in an alternate universe. I think we just need to call a wheelbarrow a wheelbarrow. Right? Exactly. He is being defined. That's what he wants to do. So I say that we toss the standard on that regard.
Tossed. I completely agree. Finally, what awaits the school children? A new dawn. Learning resumes for candidates.
Yes. So the Daily Nation is telling us that more than 1.6 million grade 4 pupils, 1.2 standard 8 pupils, and 700,000 Form 4 candidates are resuming in-class attendance. And this, of course, is amidst parents' worries about school fees. I think that the decision happened so quickly that parents did not have time to get their affairs in order. And I think part of it that's quite scary, that personally I found, is that to ensure that all learners resume learning, the government has mobilized chiefs and their assistants to ensure total compliance with the schedule. My goodness, is that not so extreme?
No, fantastic. It is good.
I think that there has to be some form of regard for what the parents are dealing with. I think that if we're going to force parents to do something that is probably out of their capacity right now, it's over the top, and I think it's unfair. And I think that we're not considering what may happen to these students in the long run. We don't want them to end up having COVID. But anyway, that is my...
Okay, I agree with you in that sense. You're taking kids to school and you're not aware about the COVID situation. Maybe this will be a regeneration of a second wave.
The likes that we've seen in Europe.
Absolutely. I think they probably should have taken a little bit more time and considered this thought. But
I say toss the Daily Nation.
I say toss it too. I think this is their version of a phased going back to school, but it's still not thought through. And then again, who bears the costs of schools who can't have water? Who's going to bear that cost? The parents already don't have money. The schools, which I don't even know where they're going to get money from. And the government has not taken any responsibility aside from calling, go back to school. There is no financial implications on the government at all. Whether
I say we toss, let's just toss the Daily Nation.
That leaves us with our first headline. Do we keep the star? Ruto's headache over Raila Mount Kenya support.
Guys, let's just toss all of them.
I think let's toss all of them.
Toss all of them. We have no winning headline. On to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. And just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge them for you. We ask ourselves, is a cartoon humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or is it pessimistic? And finally, is it effective or just plain lazy?
Iga there on Daily Nation is drawing, what a horrendous cartoon.
Goes with the headline.
Of a school-going child who's dragging the parents with a tie. And it's actually it's fees, and they're reporting back to school. I think we don't discuss it much.
I mean, of course, it's what we were saying before, that parents are not feeling prepared in this moment to go back to school in regards to school fees.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just going to toss it.
Very fast.
I agree with you.
Gado, you have General Buddy caricature of him, and he is wearing a crown of Nairobi County, and his mustache has been labeled Metropolis. And we have said here many times, it's very good this man is in charge of our city, because any mediocrity we will have had and seen in just 2 years' time would be unimaginable.
Okay,
and,
but 2M,
I think
wait, hold on, before I even get into that, I think 2M has really missed the point. Because it recently came out that by law, Nairobi city residents will be required to take part in monthly cleanups of their neighborhoods, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
There is so much wrong with that, and I find that the first 2 cartoons kind of really highlight the frustration that I've had. The first is making rash decisions in regards to school fees, that does not put parents in a very optimal position. And the second is telling me that I have to take time out of my day to clean up. No, to clean up a city that I pay taxes for to be clean.
Yeah,
right?
You can't be eating sandwiches.
It's not my business to clean it. I think
you're just being told one day. You spare one day.
I don't want to give up one day by law or by
any
choice.
Any other way.
In any case,
I think that in other countries you have lots of models that we could have replicated. Community service being one of them. I think you see that across the world. You have a small misdemeanor crime, or you're a juvenile or whatnot. You use community service as a way to clean up your city.
Yes.
I do not want to take time out of my life for a county that I contribute funds to then do their job.
There's nothing you're going to do about it. We are going to start cleaning.
Oh, you wait and see. I shall not be cleaning.
Let's move to the next cartoon, please.
I say we toss it to Jay.
I agree. Let's toss it.
Tossed. That leaves us with the Star.
The Star. You have a caricature of Raila Odinga, and that's Ozon's cartoon. And on his back has carried Mount Kenya. And the caption there is, heavy backing or the final straw that breaks the camel's back.
Normally, Tujay and Tuem, you never laugh at Ozon's
No, I think I've gotten to the point where I laugh at his puns or his double entendres or whatever you want to call them, because they're so ridiculous sometimes. Like, what?
But I like it. I like it.
So is it going to... so he has the heavy backing of Mount Kenya.
Yes.
But Mount Kenya could also be the thing that brings him down, that breaks his back.
That breaks his back. Fantastic.
From the way he's depicted it, I feel like it's the second one.
No. But the Baba is smiling here.
It could be both. They went to him.
Is he smiling or is
he's smiling?
He's smiling. He's enjoying
it.
I think for it being a light cartoon on a quite dull Monday,
I take it.
I would give it to Ozone.
I give it to him. To what do you think?
Let's give it to Ozone.
Mm-hmm. We have a winning cartoon from The Star.
Yeah, fantastic.
And what is our final thought? But before we get there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on your TV screens. We are available at Fang Pang Free to Air, Go TV, and StarTimes. Bang.
And now our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled Uncommon Grounds: The History of Coffee and How It Transformed the World by Mark Pendergrast.
So this week we'll be looking at some micro-histories. And a micro-history, very simply, is just a deep dive into one topic. So you kind of like just get into the crux, the history of one topic. And today is about coffee.
Yeah.
So I did not know this, but coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world after oil. And in this book, Pendergrast tells us the myths and the stories behind the discovery of the world's most widely taken psychoactive drug, and how these large chains like Starbucks, Java, Dormans, that you have all over the world, have transformed our world and how we interact with coffee.
Yeah.
So Ethiopia is believed to be the birthplace of coffee. We do not know exactly when or by whom coffee was discovered. And there are lots of various legends, but the most appealing one surrounds dancing goats.
Yes.
Bear with me while I explain. So the legend goes as follows. There was an Ethiopian kid named Kaldi, and he was a goat herder. And he loved following the paths that his goats made as they climbed the mountain hills.
Yeah.
So one afternoon he could not find his goats, and he used to have a pipe that he would use to call them, but he couldn't find them.
Yeah.
Eventually he heard them and found them in a patch, but he found them running around, head-butting each other, dancing on their hind legs and screaming wildly.
Yeah.
And he stood confused, and he was very horrified because he thought his goats had become possessed.
Yeah.
So he watched them chew these green leaves and red berries of a tree that he had never seen before.
Yeah.
And so he, of course, believed that the trees must be the things that were possessing him.
Yeah.
He was like, is this a poison? Are they going to die? Will my father be mad at me? So the goats refused to come home with him. But in the end, they didn't actually die.
Yeah.
And so the next day, the goats run exactly back to that same patch of land and continue to eat the green leaves and the red berries.
Yeah.
And Kaldi decided that it was also safe for him to join.
Yeah.
So he started to chew on a few leaves, and they tasted bitter.
Yeah.
But as he started to chew them, he started to have this sensation in his body, a slow tingle.
It's getting high.
And and as they started moving in his tongue down to his gut, he started to have this feeling, go throughout his body.
Yeah.
And soon, according to legend, Kaldi was then dancing with his goats as well.
Yeah.
And so he then felt that he would never be tired again.
Yeah.
So he went and told his father about these magical trees, and the word spread, and then coffee then became this integral part of Ethiopian culture.
Yes.
And we know it today.
Do not quote me on that story, but it is just a legend.
Yeah.
And so once the Ethiopians discovered coffee, it was only a matter of time until the drink began to spread throughout the Arab Sea, as a place that the Ethiopians then went on to conquer. And they even say that Muhammad, that we know from Islam, proclaimed that under the influence of coffee, he could unhorse 40 men and possess 40 women. So the coffee was strong. And so the Arab traders helped spread the coffee into Europe, where it became this huge sensation. So you see the imperial powers of Europe, of the Dutch, of the Portuguese, of the French, enslaving indigenous populations in order to grow coffee. And so even after freeing themselves of imperial control, you see these coffee-growing nations remain under the control of these coffee oligarchs. And I think even the British were very well known in East Africa for doing the same.
Absolutely.
But what we do know from coffee today in 2020 is that it employs almost 125 million people. But it's a very intensive labor crop. And unfortunately, a lot of these laborers only earn as much as $3 a day. But then you see this coffee, this raw export that we then send out into the world. We send to the tables of Europe, of Japan, of America. They then become these value-added, high-quality items. And you see, for example, in New York, a person will spend that exact same $3 wage on 1 cup of coffee, right? So there's a huge imbalance. But Pendergrass, ultimately, I think in this book, does a really good job of exploring the disturbing economic inequalities behind every single cup of coffee. And he also analyzes how this boom and bust cycle that we have with coffee prices around the world has destabilized nations like Brazil, Colombia, and Costa Rica.
Absolutely.
And I think, Tuam, you're going to tell us about the Brazil situation.
Absolutely. They say it's something you told me earlier. You told me that cocaine is a byproduct of the coffee plant.
Of the coffee leaf,
Yeah, and we grow so much coffee in this country.
Oh, goodness.
So I'm feeling there's some logical progression is where you're going
but are you guys seeing the business opportunity?
I'm not seeing.
To definitely make Coca-Cola.
Now, the lesson from this book is, please do not mess with the Americans economically. Don't take them to number one, but to also diversify your customers. Don't just have one product. One customer. Now, in June 1954, Getulio Vargas, president of Brazil, raised the minimum coffee price from 53 cents to 87 cents per kilo. Now, in July that year, the prices dipped. Now, in the US, who was the main market for Brazilian coffee, decided the big shops and the coffee buyers decided to buy coffee like a nonsense because the prices were low, and so that it's this thing called hedging. So you buy so much so that you forestall a shortage in the future. Now, the American market became oversupplied with coffee, and there was so much coffee in America that now they said, we will not buy any more from Brazil, and Brazil found themselves with a coffee glut. All right. Now, the Brazilian president, therefore, he made a decision to buy coffee from his farmers, right? To buy it back. But the guy did not have any money. So he goes to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and asks for a loan so that he could buy coffee from his coffee farmers. The Federal Reserve Bank says nope. At the same time, Brazil has an import bill of fuel worth $200 million. This is in 1954.
Wow.
And they wanted to buy fuel for 6 months. Now, you understand the situation. You are broke, number one. Number two, you have a glut of coffee. Number three, you can't buy fuel for 6 months. Now, what happens is country descends into a crisis, an economic crisis. Now, there were calls for Vargas's impeachment, and people went on the streets. There were some guys there was an attempted assassination on some right-wing journalists or that kind of thing, and they caused this mass problem, chaos and everything. Now, Vargas had too much. Now, on August 1954, the man shoots himself through the heart in his bedroom.
Wow.
Commits suicide. But the guy had a suicide note, and this is what he said in the note. He says, "I placed myself at the head of a revolution and won."
Wow.
What a crisis.
What a crisis over coffee.
Over coffee.
Who would have thought?
Kahawa.
By the way, you're undervaluing the value of coffee, and I'm going to talk about less negative aspects of coffee. Thank you, Tuem, for taking us through a very dark road of coffee. But every time you smell it, don't you at least think that it brings greater memories than those? this guy talks about the social aspects of coffee as well. So those are the economic aspects, but he talks about how up until the point where coffee reached Europe, the Europeans had basically been high most of the time, and not high on coffee, they'd been high on alcohol. They'd wake up in the morning and start with beer soup, continue drinking through the day with beer and wine, and by the end of the day, they were so inebriated, really there was not going to be any development. But at the time when coffee came into the West and it came through, and it came down to the masses and everyone could drink it, because originally coffee was a rare good. In the same way you had sugar, cocoa, and it was spices. Those were very, very precious and very rare commodities that were kept with the upper echelons of society. When it came down to the masses through coffee houses, Europe was able to come out of the stupor of drunkardness that they had, and they were able to come up with wonderful things. Beethoven is said to have come up with his most beautiful pieces while at coffee houses, communicating with people of like minds. And coffee houses have come to be known, and we still know them today, as places of sumptuous meals, animated conversation, and relaxed company. So I'd like to bring us back to thinking about the more social aspects of coffee, and how, for instance, in Nairobi, I think you guys go to a place called Caldi's that bears its name from your myth. And how we have Starbucks, and those places still have that way of bringing out our best thoughts and our highest thinking, because as you've said, it is the highest drug that we drink. This is Winning Headline. Today we had no winning headline. We had a winning cartoon from the Star. I have no clue to leave you. I just ask you to go have a cup of coffee and think about the greater things in life. Have a great day.
Yes.